Very welcome everybody to just another live stream in which today we're going to talk about how to do public speaking. I'm really happy to have you today as well. Today we have a special guest, a really close friend of mine. His name is Carlos Angulo, and he's a person who has been my partner in learning how to do public speaking properly. We are going to do a small intro about it, but before I'd like to introduce you a little bit of what he does. One thing you might not expect about him is that despite he is a software engineer or a software developer or web UI developer at Gloven, he used to be a industrial designer, and he just did a
Right.
complete switch of career. And Carlos, maybe perhaps you want to share a little bit more about this and give us an intro about what you do.
Okay. Thank you so much, Juan. It's a tremendous honor to be here sharing the stage with you. Mostly with this topic I love is public speaking. Well, a little bit about me. Yeah, as you mentioned before, I'm an industrial designer, but I'm working as a software developer since 12 years ago, I think so. But I came to this world um, because I fell in love about graphic design, web design, and animations. So I don't know if you remember that there was a software called Flash that was an
Yes.
yeah, that was an amazing software. You could design, animate, and most important, you could program. Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
could do programming in there. So that was the way why I learned to program. And yeah, when Flash died, I moved to JavaScript, and that's the way I moved to front end development.
When it comes to public speaking, so how did you start with public speaking? Perhaps I can share a little bit how I did it. I remember that when I was 14 years old, I was part of a science group, and the science group became really popular in Colombia at some point. It was called El Parque de la Creatividad. And what
Okay.
happened is that we'd start giving kind of press conferences. Like we would give conferences, presentations, and we needed to rehearse to present ourselves and to sell ourselves. And they were really strict with us. Like you need to sell the product well and don't reveal any confidence data and so on. So at the age of 14, I was already like in this vibe of sharing and talking and stuff, and things just escalated, right? Like over time, this is a skill that allows you to share much information with communities and so on, and that's how I kind of grew up my experience. How about you? How did you enter this field of public speaking?
Okay. I don't really remember. That was a lot of time ago. I think that was in at school when I was 11. I
Okay.
remember I needed to talk in public in my class about Mexican story.
Uh-huh.
And well, I had a big book about Mexican stories, so I was reading that and making my script and making these big presentations. At that time, we didn't
Okay.
have a computer,
All right.
so all the maps were drawn by hand. And yeah, when I go to the public after the rehearsal and things like that, well, I felt like this is the most difficult thing I've made ever.
No way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because I was so blush, my hands and my body were shaking, and yeah. But I think at the end I did it well. I don't know why, but I enjoyed the opportunity.
Nice. Nice.
Yep.
Okay, so for the audience that is listening to us at the moment, there's one thing you need to know. We are going to talk about our experience, like actual real experiences we had when we were doing public speaking. We've done plenty of presentations out there in different occasions, even emceeing, and from each of these experiences, we learned something. We published a Twitter thread with the main learnings, and now we want to show you how we apply them in real life. So we're gonna go through some of these experiences of for instance, our presentations, what we did right and work out, what we did wrong and really fucked us up. So yeah, let's go with that. Carlos, when was the last presentation you gave, and what do you do in this presentation? Like how did you prepare it? How did you execute it? Can you share a little bit more about that?
Okay. Well, nowadays we are making online presentations, so this is not exactly the same. But if you're talking about public speaking in a scenario, I remember that was in Medellin JS, which is a local community. We are talking about yeah, and I was talking about animations. I had very good experience talking about this because this is my comfort zone.
All right.
So that was basically taking some experience of previous presentations, including in my new one, and of course talking about the topic, the technical topics. I was good research about the Angular animation, JavaScript animation, and different libraries, and how could I include in the same speech to conserve the the structure. Yep.
Okay. So
Um.
continue.
Yep. Oh yeah. So basically, since I had enough experience talking about this topic, so it was very easy to me to prepare a new one with a different approach and yeah,
Okay,
different
okay, okay.
resources.
How do you handle being able to keep a a balance between the depth of the content that you're presenting and also being able to sell or pitch an idea so that people are interested in it? Because this was one of the tweets, right? Like, try to keep a balance or try to understand what are the trade-offs, right? Like, in this particular
Yeah.
example, how do you deal with it? Did you go for something more shallow, or did you went deep dive into animations?
Well, good, great. I think this is a good question because I think all the topics you can talk about can be very impressive or important for the audience, no matter if they have a good experience of a they don't um, want to know about this topic. Yeah, because uh, all the technical topics are solving real life problems. For example, if you're talking about a library like RxJS and observables and things like that, you can use real life examples to show how it works. So I think it's much more powerful if you show the problem at first, but using different elements that can um, help with the audience. Um, how do you say that? The audience experience and um,
Well,
that's what I don't know if you know what I mean.
I guess this reminds me also of when you mentioned the problem. Have you ever heard this expression "too long didn't read"? Right, like, which is what they put at the top of blocks, and this is like the summary of what it is going to be about, and then you decide to read it or not. I think this is also relevant when you do presentations. I've been doing this in every single presentation for the past, I don't know, 2 years, I guess, in which I always start, this is my name, this is what I do, and this is the problem I'm going to solve for you with this presentation. So that problem, it's either how to improve your Angular skills, or how to do public speaking, or whatever, how to do RxJS, right? Or how to use certain operators. So I start with the problem right away so that they know what at the end of the presentation they are going to get. So this is
Yeah,
super helpful, because if you start with a presentation, start talking about many things, at the middle of the presentation, the audience will be like, okay, but where is he trying to get? Like what's the point? Where are we trying to reach, right?
yeah, that's really important. Um, uh, if you take the approach of having just one topic and one problem to solve, yeah, just the audience will keep the attention on your speech. If you're talking about for example, reactive programming, you can talk about many things, many things. But let's do the next thing. Just remember that the structure um, of your speech is going to be the structure of a building. If this is strong, if it has just one line of forces,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be much powerful than if this structure has, for example, a fish structure. I don't know how do you say that. That
Fish.
has so many, yeah, fish and bones. That
Okay.
has different ways pointing to several points, to
Okay.
several topics.
All right. All
Yeah,
right. All
that's
right.
right.
So I think you want to converge towards a single point to make a point really strong, as opposed to having several points that just make the overall topic uh,
Yeah,
like not convergent.
yeah. And the first step to prepare your presentation is so important because you're talking about the structure, and the very first stage, this is flexible to move some elements to the top and then others to the bottom. um, and and one thing you have to do is at the end to make a powerful conclusion. So everything you're talking about must be concluded in just one point that people remember.
John Paul Jepes says, "I listen that you should start a presentation with a promise." I think this kind of makes sense, right? Like this is the selling point.
Okay.
It's almost like a political statement. Like this is what you're gonna get if you vote for me. This is what you're gonna get if you watch this presentation. And it's got to be strong, as you say, clear, transparent, and it's got to be materialized, right? Like at the end, you should get exactly that. So it's fine if it's not too big, right? It's not because I think it might be misleading when the promise is you are going to become an Angular expert by the end of this presentation. Like, I'm not so sure. But if they tell me you're going to understand how routing module works, that's more feasible, right? But let's switch to some examples of real life. Can you recall the moment in which you did something for public speaking and didn't work out? Something that you tried because you were experimenting, we were all experimenting, and it didn't pay off. Something perhaps your audience didn't like. Can you recall something?
Yeah, I remember that was about 20 years ago. I
Okay.
made an amazing presentation with these slides with animations and things like that. But I was it took me around 2 or 3 weeks preparing this presentation, but my speech at the end wasn't very powerful. So the audience was like, "Hey, what a nice animations! Wow, what a great design!" But what is he talking about? I don't really remember. What his message? I don't remember. The attention of the audience was like jumping and going down, and yeah, what that was a very bad experience. So I understood that design wasn't everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you thought the design was everything before. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's right.
Um,
So about your bad experiences, I don't remember. Well, for those who don't know, when and I were working in a company called Juxi, Juxi
mhm,
Global.
mhm.
That was 4 years ago. We were working together for 2 years, and he was always like, "Okay, I'm a teacher. I'm going to teach everyone about this topic, about functional programming and things like that." And all the time when he was preparing his class, he was giving a good introduction so everyone could understand that this topic was very important.
Mhm.
But I don't remember one moment that you gave a bad presentation, or do you remember one?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like the overall presentation went really bad, fortunately. But there were times in which I had really rough moments during presentations. I do recall. I do recall. Yeah, it was once it was in Bolivia, another one was in Graz. In Bolivia, I remember that I went to give this talk in Bolivia, and it was a really nice talk, and I prepared really well and everything. But at this point in time, I was introducing humor in presentations. So I was bringing some kind of jokes and sarcasm and gifts. And and at some point I say jokes, and I guess the audience, jokes were not clear enough for this audience, so they didn't laugh. And when you say a joke and you don't hear laugh back or not as much, then you immediately question yourself and wonder if the joke was really, this was a bad joke, or just they didn't get it, or should I say it again? This happened repeatedly, and I was expecting a different reception. The overall talk was really good, and people really liked it. Actually, it was only afterwards, when the talk was finished, that I was all sad and just walking, and then people approached me, like, "What a great talk!" I'm like, "Really?" Yes, it was amazing. I'm like, okay, thank you. So that was one of the learnings, right? Like different people are react to talks differently. And this was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first. And this was the first time. Like the second time, I remember I gave a talk. I prepared a talk, and I gave it at Berlin, and the audience was loving it. Like from the very moment, I was even sick that day. I had a cold, so I was like talking like this and stuff. And I still put some jokes from some comedians that I'm recently watching, and I kind of introduced those routines into my talk, and people were loving it. They were like, "Wow, this is so amazing," and cracking up. And then 2 weeks later, I come to Graz to give this talk at the Angler Graz meetup, and and there was no laughing, despite it was the same talk. And I was like surprised, because why? Like, but I used the same tonality, the same jokes, the same things, and I wasn't getting the same reaction. And then I guess you start to understand that whenever you're presenting, the context or the background of the audience plays a very relevant role. How they react to like, how do they see presentations? Do they see them as a of casual conversation, or do they see them as a really serious thing to do, to which you have to show respect and not laugh and not do much, right? So depending on how your audience perceives with whatever you're doing, that's the kind of reaction you're gonna get, and you have to set that in from the beginning. It's like, hey, everybody, chill out. This is cool. Okay, this is gonna be fun. But yeah, that's what I learned.
Okay, well, great experience. Yeah, yeah. I agree with you, but I had a good opportunity in the same conference in Bolivia. I don't know if that was the same conference,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember when I came to this place. 2 weeks, 2 days before, I came to make some questions about the local culture. Yeah, for example, the local places, the food, the famous personalities or politicians or things like that. Because yeah, in my country we don't know about that much about
Yeah.
Bolivian culture. So that was great because I was including all that elements into my speech. So all the people feel like, well, how that guy knows that much about Bolivia. I didn't know that before, but
Yeah.
that was great because I could connect with people, with local people. So yeah, I remember yours was the first or the second talk during the
Uh
conference.
huh.
Mine was the last one. So at 6 p.m. all the people is tired. They don't want to know much about technical topics, but including this kind of elements was amazing. Was
Okay.
very powerful.
Nice.
So that was a good advice. Please try to include all the people in your presentation as much as possible. The better.
One of the things I remember also that we tried, or that I tried in Bolivia, is that I reached out to you and to a couple of people that I knew were going to be in the audience, and I said,
Yeah.
"Look, I want you to have the mic with you, because I'm gonna pull you out and ask you a question, because these are people I know, these are people that I trust, and but they didn't know what I was gonna ask them." So there was this element of uncertainty in the air, because it was interesting. It's like, okay, I was in the stage and I said like, Carlos, I have a question for you. Please stand up. And he would stand up and then he would have no idea what I was going to ask him. But I was going to ask
Yeah.
him something that whose answer I would use to build up onto what I wanted to convey. So that's also adding some interaction was helpful in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's a good element because the audience is not able to answer your questions properly, so they are shy and nervous, and yeah, wouldn't be a good element if you make these questions to someone else in the audience. But if you're using one of your friends, it's gonna be much easier for them. And for the attendees, could be better if they are not doing a good answer, because yeah, this is a Google developer expert, but is not answering this question right. So it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
failing.
exactly, absolutely. Do you recall something that you did recently at a presentation and that went all right, or that you liked, or that you never tried before, then you said, well, this was a cool thing to incorporate into my presentation?
Yeah, I think every time I give a presentation, that gives me more experience, so I can include more elements. Just remember, when you have no experience, you have to make a big presentation, a big preparation. Yeah,
Okay.
like 80% of your speech is going to be preparation, and 20% is going to be your performance in the audience, in the stage. But when you have more experience, this preparation is going to be shorter, and you can include more elements like improvisation, and your performance is going to be the 80%. Yeah, so things that I can include right now, it's making jokes, but this is a difficult part because you don't know, as you said before, how the people's going to take your joke. So I prefer, for example, doing jokes about myself, about
Okay.
my past, about
Hmm.
yeah, how I feel, how I felt in some situation. So including these elements in my previous talk was amazing. Was amazing. So that was something I didn't have prepared before, but that works pretty well.
One of the things that when it comes to comedy that helps me a lot is to identify those comedians, for example, that I like, that I enjoy, because somehow imitating them feels more authentic because I naturally enjoy their jokes and their humor, which would be different to me picking up a super famous comedian that I don't really like as much, but is super famous, and then trying to copy his routine or their routine. So, so, so what I do is that I've been listening to Hassan Minaj and in Netflix, or Jimmy Fallon in the Saturday Night Live or so, and try to see how they use their humor because I kind of liked it. And then I try to incorporate it into my presentation. So once they say a joke or they do something that is really hilarious to me, I just write it down in my phone and then try to bring it into the next presentation.
Okay, great. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if you can hear some noise in the
No,
background. This is a guy selling avocados all the time.
no, I cannot
Yeah,
hear it.
when I'm okay, it's great. Yeah. So I have a
Aguacate, aguacate.
llévelo, llévelo a mil. Yeah, Nadine.
Yeah.
Nadine loves avocados.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question for you. Why the humor is so important in your talks? Why?
One of the things that happened, I remember, I heard that you cannot laugh and fear at the same time. And that's the reason why when
Wow.
people are watching a horror movie, they make jokes and they laugh. They are just trying to cope with with their own fear, right? They're like, ha ha, he's about to die. Ha ha ha. So what happens when you're in a presentation? People just like you, they they don't know what's going to happen. They are like, they are scared of speaking. They are scared of making a question because this takes a lot of courage. But when you introduce humor into your talk, they loosen up very much because they don't have enough cognitive load to be afraid of stuff or to think about other things or whatever. They just completely loosen up, remain present, and then they are kind of waiting for the next joke. You know, they're like attentive. So I think this is one of the reasons why comedy is fun, because when you don't include comedy, the talk can be really interesting, really mesmerizing.
Yep.
But then I think it might be easier for people to be locked into themselves, like reluctant to participate or to do something. But when you show that you can be hilarious as well, they loosen up, and I think that's valid. What do you think? Do you have another take?
Yeah, I have another approach, but at the end is the same. You can let's think about it. You can learn about a topic,
Mm-hmm.
just like discipline and just reading and making some exercises and things like that. But that can be a bad experience for you if you don't like it. But
Mm-hmm.
if there is something else that you can introduce to motivate you as much as possible, it's going to be easier, all the process for you. It's different when you have a teacher that it's always pointing the bad things you
Mm-hmm.
did, uh, in contrast, another teacher that is always motivating you and making good relationship with him or
Okay.
with their. um, yeah, I think this is a different approach. Things with love and with humor are much more very easy to understand and to take to your life. It's a very nice experience, I think.
Nice. Um, Luciano just joined. He's a friend I actually met in Jerome. And for this, I also have an experience to share. I remember that this was my first time in Italy. It was quite interesting. This conference in Jerome was held in a theater. So the backstage was theater like we have our, I don't know how to say camerino or camerino, is that an English word? Regardless, we have these places where we could train, and we have our mirror and the lights, and then just you. And it was super nice because I was able to rehearse my intro pretty well. Like, because in a presentation, the first statement you say, it's really important because that kind of tells the audience what they're gonna get out of you. So I was practicing over and over again in front of the mirror, and then I was like, I did it so much that I was fully ready. And then when I'm going in the backstage, ready to go, I feel like when they have this American Idol, that there's these people interviewing the guy right before he goes into stage, and they look at him, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm excited. They're like, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. It was super nice. All of these people were really supporting. And then suddenly it's my time, and I just go with all this energy, and then like, welcome everybody, wow. And then people immediately felt it in themselves, and they replied back, and that just set the tone from there on, and it was really good. So what I take from this experience are two things. First one, rehearse as much as possible by repeating,
Yep.
right? It's what we discussed before about Bruce Lee, right? He is not afraid of a man who knows 1,000 moves. He's afraid of a man who has practiced a move 1,000 times. So if you do it over and
Great.
over again, and we said this in the Twitter, when you're junior, repeating your presentation, preparing over and over again is the best thing against stage fright. That just kills it. Once you've done this so many times, you won't be afraid. And the second thing is having supporting friends. That also helps a lot. So having somebody who tells you you're gonna do great or you did great, that gives you kind of a good feeling.
Yeah. I totally agree. And yeah, I think one last thing, please rehearsal as if you were in the audience, in front of the audience, with a good volume of voice,
Mm-hmm.
with your movements, because you're not only talking or speaking with your voice, but with your whole body. So please ask your family that be in front of you after maybe 3 or 4 rehearsals before, and yeah, feel like you are in the A scenario.
Yep.
Don't do it with a low level of voice, or that
Yep.
that won't really work.
Yep. Yep. This reminds me, and I'd like to kind of wrap it up with perhaps one of the most thrilling uh, yet interesting experiences we had together, which was preparing the MC for MG Colombia. So for the audience who doesn't know,
Yeah,
MG Colombia was perhaps at that point the first or one of the biggest Angular conferences in Latin America, and Carlos and I were part of the organization, and we were doing the MC, but we wanted to do excellent MC. So we prepare, if I recall correctly, months before. And
I
what's
think
interesting
once
about this is that we underwent or how undergo trainings from every single perspective. So we had a voice teacher who were this guy telling us how to speak. We had an acting teacher, and I guess we also had this guy who also did it with our minds, right? He was like being the present time and whatever. So we have all this training, and we also rehearse a lot, and this kind of gave like helped us bring the best out of us in stage. What do you recall from this experience?
wow, was an amazing experience. I think that was 1 year working in the whole experience, but working as a master of ceremonies. I think we had 2 months preparation with teachers, and yeah, at the end. 2 days before, we went to your place, and we were rehearsing with a recording. We were recording our presentations
Sure.
and taking and checking it back, and we said, well, we need to relax much better here, and your position is so like a robot, because even though I was practicing this a lot of times, I was like a robot. I was saying, hey everybody, good morning, how are you? Yeah. I didn't feel natural. So I remember your mom was there, and she said, yeah, you need to relax more. You need to be more authentic. I didn't know how to do that, but yeah, that feedback is so important. What but was so important for me at that point. And I remember I was preparing some jokes and things like that. One of the jokes that was very hard to remember to me was like, in this moment I needed to talk like I was a pilot. I don't know if you remember.
I guess we
Um,
were going to do the safety security joke where we said like, please fasten your
yeah,
seatbelt and so on.
fasten your seatbelt. I didn't remember that sentence. So at that moment, in the audience, I was like frozen. Was my turn, and please. And you were fasten your seatbelts. Oh yeah, yeah, fasten your seatbelts and things like that. Yeah, was was amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I remember that was the very first time I was talking in English for one whole day. Was really hard to me. We were tired because all the preparation and things like that. And yeah, I felt more relaxed at the afternoon. I wanted to make this question. We decided to run this in English. Are we doing it well? But I didn't prepare this question. I didn't know how to make this in English. And at the end was, hey people, are we doing it well? What? That sounds like this. So the people was, yeah, I don't know what you mean, but yeah. Oh man, was it?
And that's what you get with body language, right? Like if you have the right body language, the right tone,
Yeah, that's
the message itself, becomes irrelevant at some point. It's like, yeah, yeah, he's fine, right? So,
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that, but I feel good right now because your feedback. Thank you.
all right. I guess yes. This has been Sono. Cami, hello. Cami's also joined us.
Hey,
So no, I mean, I don't know if you have anything else that would like to share that maybe we're missing. Any other story you like to wrap it up with?
yeah, I think the most important thing. How many time do we have?
That's
Yeah, I have a question for you. why public speaking is so important for you.
Let's wrap it up with why it is important for us. I didn't prepare this answer because Carlos just brought it up a couple of minutes ago. Uh, but public speaking, it's important to me because of my personality and because of the impact. So, personality wise, I'm a person that it's driven by recognition, by being in the spotlight. This is just what I am, and I feel really good when I'm able to be in a crowd, speaking and being the center of attention. Which this might have been perceived as something negative. I think it's just also part of many people's nature, and that's fine. And I like it, and people sometimes enjoy it. So why not? But on the other hand, you have the impact, right? Like, well, while you're the center of attention, you have the opportunity to make a positive impact on the audience and the people that are listening. And this is where I found a match, like a market product fit, right? Like, this is what I am. This is what people need. If I just go to the intersection, I get it. And that's what I did. So that's how I became a Google developer expert, a co-founder, organizer, speaker, and now live streamer, right? So I just like those two things and connected those two things, and that's why public speaking is important to me.
Okay, okay.
What about
Fair
you?
enough. About me, well, I think I have a different motivation. I don't know if you know, um, I had really, I was really nervous when I was young, really shy. Uh, I was that kind of guy that was always in the corner,
Mm-hmm.
because has was afraid talking with public, even when this group was 5 people, was
Okay.
was was difficult. But I was really smart. I always good at my school and things like that. But when I was in my job, I remember many people were not as good as me in programming,
Okay.
but they had very good jobs. Um, then I realized that uh, improving your skills, your speaking skills, your communication skills is really important. No matter if you're a programmer, if you have a different profession, improving your communication skills is really important, and this is something that will help you any any place you are. If you are in another city, you don't know where you are, you need help, communicating with people is so important. And so public speaking is just one way to improve that.
Yep.
This is my approach, and since I'm doing this, my career is very much better for me. I think it's amazing. This is
Yep.
something you have to do no matter what you're doing.
Naval Ravikant says if you can build, which is in this case coding, and you can sell, which is in this case is public speaking, you will be unstoppable. Like, those are two skills that you have to develop. Steve Jobs also said, um, no, he said something, but it's unrelated now that I think about it. Regardless, and if you can make jokes, it's even better. But yeah, those two skills are really important. Being able to build, being able to sell. Not everybody can do both, but certainty being able to sell through public speaking, and through great communication, it's key. I would say this is a wrap up of pretty much what we've been saying so far, sharing some experience. Thank you very much for everyone who joined us, who was here, who is watching this afterwards as well. We appreciate your time as well. Carlos, I thank you very much for also joining me for doing this. This takes time, this
Thank
takes preparation.
you.
It's not just 40 minutes, it's way more. So I appreciate you being up to this. Any last words you'd like to share?
No, no, no. Thank you for the invitation. This is really good for me, especially become from you, an amazing speaker. And yeah, I've been building this career as a speaker because of the motivation you gave me 3 or 4 years ago. So thank you very much for that, and thank you very much for this invitation.
Nice. Thank you, Carlos. Appreciate that. Everybody, then have a good rest of Sunday and see you later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.